That'd be cool.
a little bit of overkill. And sort of along the theme of Roger there, I wanted to take the first 5 minutes before I start talking about Layover and sort of take you on a verbal slideshow of the island from the perspective of me as from a 5-year-old and on up, and we'll end up right back here at Island Books. So my family came to the island in 1956, and we lived on 83rd Avenue toward the north end of the island. We had a view to the west, and below our house was this large pasture, maybe 15, 20 acres, and there was a horse there named Hanukkah. I always wanted to ride that horse, but I never did. And that pasture later became West Mercer Elementary, as things started to build up in the early 1960s. One of my first memories of living here was a couple of weeks after we had moved in. My dad and I herded the pack of English setters into the back of the station wagon, and we got up and we drove down the rutted 84th Avenue, which became Island Crest Way, turned left on 40th, and over the crest of the hill we pulled off to the side of the road. And when I got out, all I could see on both directions, to the south and down the hill, was 4.5-foot tall grass about the same height as me, and the sun was low in the sky, and it looked gold and purple, and I went, wow. And so, and I remember just not hearing anything except for the hum of the grass, as the wind would gust. When my dad opened up the back of the tailgate, the dogs shot out like missiles, and there they went across the field, hip-hopping with their tails swishing, and they were jumping up in order to see. And I remember the swallows would fly right in front of them, seemingly just out of reach for them, and then they started to, of course, yip. So a couple of years later, I got permission to ride my bicycle down to the shopping center. And I remember the first time I did it, was a really hot day, and it was great going down that hill, going down 40th, and then into the shopping center, and the breeze is blowing, and it felt really good. Well, I had not remembered that, when you lose a lot of elevation, in order to get home, I had to regain that elevation. And so, about a quarter of the way up of 40th, I looked up, and it seemed like I was climbing Mount Rainier, and I couldn't ride any longer, and I had to push the bike. And when I got home, they asked me how it was, and I said, I don't think I'm going to be going down there for a while. In the summer of 1958, for about a month, I would walk up to Mercer Crest Elementary, get on the school bus, and we would wind our way down to the south end of the island, and they would drop me at the Mercer Island Beach Club, where I took swimming lessons and learned to swim in water about as dark as Ellis Pond. If you went in past your ankles, you couldn't see your feet. The good news was that the year before, they had stopped polluting the lake, and then they were starting to clean it up, and by the time I graduated in 1969, you could see about 15 feet down. So some things do change for the better. In 1961, my folks, Phil and Connie, opened up Mercer Island Travel. Travel agencies were a new type of business, but they made a go of it. And like any new businessman, he threw himself into the community, joined everything in Kiwanis, Chamber of Commerce, got into coaching, basketball, and baseball. He was also a classic car fanatic, and he was always enamored with the show in Pebble Beach, which was then and still is the most prestigious car show in the world. And being a businessman from here, he was always trying to promote not only his business, but Mercer Island business. And he had this crazy idea that we could put on such a show in the Pacific Northwest, and not just in the Pacific Northwest, but right here on Mercer Island. And he and the Kiwanis did that in the summer of 1963, and he was very excited about the fact that people were coming over here as opposed to us always driving into Bellevue or to Seattle to do our shopping. And it was a huge success. Did it again in 1964. They had over 100 cars, and there were about 8,000 people that came. And he was always talking about the spirit of community with the members on the island and the committees and all the work that they had to do. And politically, they're all over the board. And I remember after the car show, him talking with my mom, and he was saying, yeah, we really had a spirit of cooperation. You know, when it was time to get things done, we would roll up our sleeves and work things out. And what I now think of as a Yogi Berra is, and I remember him saying to her, I even like the guys I didn't like. So, and as Roger mentioned, in 1973, the Dean family opened Island Books. And I think it was like a lot of businesses then, where you think, well, how long is this going to last? Because it was a tough go unless you owned a gas station or cleaners on Mercer Island. I think there was about 10 of each, even with 12,000 people or something. And when I first started flying, not only would I go to Chicago and New York and big cities, but I'd also end up in places like Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, Columbus, Ohio. And I was not very interested in shopping or malls or anything like that. But what I was interested in were wine shops and bookstores. They were great places to hang out in. They were usually, the proprietor was there to talk to you, and I love that feeling. You know, sadly, a lot of that has gone away. And so I think Bob Hibbs, a friend of mine that I was having lunch with right before Christmas, said it best, and he's a resident of the island. He said that Island Books is a treasure, and we're lucky to have it here in our community. So kudos to Roger and his staff for being able to keep up with the times, and yet when you walk into the store, you get that feeling that you always did when you came in. And kudos to the people that support this store and other ones like it. People like Nancy Cross and Patty Smith, who, when learning that I published the book Layover, did not ask me, where can I get it? They said, is it available yet at Island Books? Because that's where we buy our books. And so it's you know, for me, like I said, I'm an island guy, and for me to be able to talk about my book anywhere, this is the place that I want to do it in. So. So let me, actually, let me back up and ask you a question, and this is huge. I mean, if we can get our arms around this, we might be able to crack open the secrets to the universe. And that is, who looked better in the flight attendant uniform? Jacqueline Bissett in 1970 or Catherine Zeta-Jones in the terminal in 2004? And if you want to, you can throw in the girl who was in passenger 57, Elizabeth Hurley. She was actually turned out to be the bad guy, but she filled out the uniform fairly well, I think. So, and so I'll ask you another question here, and it's a rhetorical question, which I'll answer. Is if it's possible for somebody to work on a manuscript for a couple of years, pound out, say, 80 to 100,000 words, and not know what their story's about. And I can tell you that, yeah, it is possible. And in fact, my first two novels, by the way, Layover is my third novel, so I've been doing this for a while. My first two novels, which I pitched to agents, the first thing they want to know is, what's your story about? And they will tell you that if you can't answer them in one sentence, then you really don't know what your story's about. And so for me, and I'll get into this a little bit, is that this story was really important, that I had a clear idea of where I was going, and I did right from the start. And it's pretty simple. The story is about a crew of flight attendants, and it's not about Jacqueline Bissett being the love interest of Dean Martin in the airport. It's not about a flight attendant who happens to be friend with someone in the terminal in New York. It's about a crew. And so for me, that was sort of my guiding beacon in my headlight that I always kind of kept up with. The second thing that the agent might ask you would be, well, how does your story differ from anything else that's out there? And I would say, well, refer to the first question. It's about a crew. It's not about individuals, and it's not about people who happen to be about flight attendants. It's about flight attendants doing things that flight attendants do. And the other thing is that I'll give you a definition of what I consider of the word crew and what it meant to me throughout my flying career. Now, some ex-flight attendants that are here, they won't know that by the time that we retired, we had an in-flight handbook that made War and Peace look small. And so all the information was in there, but the things that I was interested in are things that weren't written, and that was that from the time that you walked on the airplane until the time you walked off, you had each other's backs, and it didn't matter whether you liked the other crew members, whether you even knew them. And quite a bit in the last part of my career, and especially when I was on reserve for the first 20 years of my career, you're constantly flying with people that you maybe fly one segment with, and then you won't ever see them again for the rest of your life, or maybe you'll run into them 10 years later. It didn't matter. And I always had that feeling that everyone thought that way, no matter what happened. And then if you happen to be on a 3-day trip with the same people, or some of the same people, whoever those people were that you laid over with, that extended that for that entire time. So if somebody said, well, let's meet here for lunch, and they don't show up, you get quite concerned about them. And so that's sort of the theme of the book, and as it goes forward, how the crew sort of takes care of each other. And that was pretty important to me to get that across, because one, it makes for a good story, and two, it's the most accurate way. I mean, it's the closest to the truth that there is. The other thing I wanted to do was incorporate the idea that most flight attendants came from some other field, or they're very capable in other areas of expertise. And so everything that happens in that book is not far-fetched from the sense that they would be capable of doing things out of the ordinary like that.